Hey hope everyone's excited for the upcoming festive season. Do 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 do. While here at our planet, we dug the holes in the Netrunnerverse, we hacked the walls. And to do this, we are going to look at none other than our favorite supermom. That's right, it's Sunny LeBeau. And you know that this channel is going downhill and the author is going out of ideas when he's looking at the mini factions, huh? Nah, just kidding. Everyone knows that Sunny LeBeau is the characteristic force of good that can't do wrong, being a superman by, or rather should I say, being a security specialist by day and superman by night. Someone to look up to. Well, little do you all know, she actually has a very, very dark, sinister side to her. She's involved with the mines in a mining accident. How can this be? Well, I never really thought about it, but then when I started considering cards for a Sunny deck, I started realizing that Mining Accident might just be one of the best cards to place in Sunny. And here's why. Even though it thematically doesn't fit at all, Mining Accident helps Sunny earn money in the form of making the runs cheaper. Sunny breakers are very expensive, and out-tracing the court with Nexus might be hard, but with bad publicity, Sunny can suddenly become disgustingly bonkers, allowing her to maintain a very strong remote lock. Mining Accident also slows down the court if they choose to pay the 5 credits instead of taking the bad pub. Otherwise, Sunny could easily lose to a rush deck. Finally, Mining Accident also synergizes with run cards, requiring a successful central run first. You have quite a few run cards in your deck, such as Useless Wild, Dirty Laundry, and your in-faction Jack Sinclair, which allows you to make free runs every turn. So Mining Accident seems like a very natural fit into Sunny, theme aside. So today we are going to be playing a deck that looks something like this. Now, building a Sunny deck is one of the most open-ended deck building questions in the entire problems, I should say, in the entire game. I think a lot of newer players might not be very comfortable building a Sunny deck all by themselves, given the huge deck size, the high influence limit. So I'm going to proceed to spend the next couple of minutes talking a bit about what you want to expect in a Sunny deck. Firstly, as with all runners, I should say, you need a good draw package, and there isn't really much of that in fact within the Sunny cards. So we want to get lots of these cards in the deck because we want to consistently see them from game to game. Hence the high density. We have 11 of our 50 cards in our deck that are draw, and we want it to be very bursty. Now, I think a lot of people like to lean towards cards like Professional Contacts and Laguna Velasco District. Unfortunately, these cards are slow to set up and increase your setup overhead, as if Sunny isn't slow enough to set up with expensive breakers, expensive hardware, and all the expensive money cards. So you don't want another expensive component in the mix. It makes your deck way too slow, hence the burst nature of this economy. Peddlers, build scripts, and Useless Wild allow you to draw very quickly through the early game. As for economy, this is basically kind of dictated by what you have in the neutral card pool. Being the only runner that can play Underworld Contact reliably from the outset, I should say, and getting drip economy straight out from that, you want to have it in your deck. And when you combine it with data folding, which is always on for Sunny because all your breakers don't take memory since you have 2 link, this means that you have 9 very reliable drip economy cards in your deck. As such, when you play a Sunny deck, one of your biggest priorities when you're looking for your mulligan is to have as many of these drip econ cards as possible, because they will just carry you through the entire game. Unfortunately, these cards fold to turn 1 scarcity, all 9 of these economy cards, so you need a counter to that. Fortunately for you, Sunny is one of the best runners to play in terms of countering the corpse current, because you have good current in faction in the form of Another Day, Another Paycheck, and you can spend your restricted slot on Employee Strike, because you don't really need your restricted slot on much else. This allows you to have 4 currents in your deck, 5 if you want to, if you would choose to bump up the number of Another Day, Another Paychecks in your deck, as well as the same old things to recur these currents. Now, the same old things were originally in there for deep data mining recursion, because we can't play that many deep data minings in the deck. We don't have enough influence for it, hence we recur it with same old thing. But same old thing in this case also doubles up as current recursion, and that can be very useful against scarcity. So this is basically my Sunny deck in a nutshell. Not much else to say about it. It's time to hop into the game and see if we can hack the walls with deep data mining accident. Now this is the kind of opening hand that everyone dreams about. Goodness me, too bad not everyone gets to play out such an amazing hand. Stupid 50 card deck size. Well, the opening turn cannot be more obvious. Play Sure Gamble, run one of the centrals, and double mining accident them and get all the bad pub in the world. The best part is, they have to think about the first mining accident, and the second one they go, oh screw it, I'm just gonna give you the bad pub. So that was the amazing thing about it. My opponent actually selected both options, giving me one bad pub and forcing them to lose 5 credits. And I cannot overestimate how important it is to slow down a corp that can rush as well as Agent Fusion can in the early game. The more Nisseis you allow them to get, the better. And look, another one, the third mining accident appeared within the top 7 cards of my deck. So I just played the Dirty Laundry, I got the mining accident going, and I basically pissed off my opponent. This is how you irritate people. Well, they did recover with the celeb gift, but don't forget, they're 10 credits behind and you have a bad pub. You are winning, even though you have nothing installed at all. So that's amazing. Now, my opponent has an equally, or I should say more amazing hand. Nisei Mark II, Orbo Carter, Philotic, preemptive action. What the hell is this? I would totally be running HQ right now if not for the fact that I could easily just throw the game if I run into a Chiyashi or a DNA tracker. So first things first, draw some cards and play some money. I don't really fancy the idea of dropping my entire hand to a rogue piece of net damage ice. Losing my crucial economy cards, which I stated earlier is a very key reason why I play Sunny, only to hit an Orbo Carter from hand that I cannot steal because I just got zapped for net damage. So unfortunately, even though I know my opponent's completely loaded on HQ, I cannot fetch those agendas because Orbo Carter is a very defensive agenda. If their hand was something like Double Brain Trust, Medical Breakthrough, and Philotic, I would be running the heck out of that hand, trust me. But yeah, Orbo Carters make it a lot worse. So too bad. But we can still continue building up some money. We just have to keep note of our opponent's rushing nature. They are going to rush very quickly through that remote, and you know that they have a Nisei Mark II in hand. So you know that's going to be their plan, and you know it's going to happen. Can I get to that remote in time? I don't think so. They install advance. Do I face check it? Do I install any of my breakers before going for it? I have 11 credits. It's something. It's not enough though. So I'm thinking about it pretty hard here. I decide that the striker is the most important one to get down. Strike, not so much. I could survive a rogue Komainu, I guess, but instead I hit a Chiyashi. Neither of my breakers could deal with that. So unfortunately, I'm going to drop my entire hand here, but at least I survived. Thankfully, I ran with 4 cards. You always learn to do that against Jinteki nowadays. Now, they bankrupted themselves. So very interesting here. They were willing to res that Chiyashi and bankrupt themselves in the process. Here's the thing though, I couldn't take advantage of this window to assault HQ. Firstly, because obviously I don't have the 4 cards to steal Orbo Carter, but more importantly, the Agent Fusion boop would cost me the game. So right now I'm drawing not just to pad my hand for stealing Orbo Carters, but also to get the strike in my hand. I barely need the employee strike, because without it, I can't run centrals without getting booped into Chiyashi, and that is a big problem. So, my very next turn, after they scored a Nisei, I immediately drew a card so that I can steal his Orbo Carter here, played this employee strike to turn off Agent Fusion's ability, and then stole the Orbo Carter after running twice. My opponent couldn't defend against that because they were dirt poor. Remember, they went bankrupt trying to res the Chiyashi and score the Nisei. And this is why mining accident is so good. Setting them 10 credits behind is the difference between being able to assault HQ, which is fully loaded with agendas, and not being able to. Here I played Useless Wild. Noting that there is a scarcity of resources in play. I saw it from HQ and they smartly played it right after I got my strike up. So now I can't run centrals again. Don't forget, the boop onto Chiyashi is game ending. But I will replace their scarcity with my strike soon. However, After deliberating it for a bit, I decide to draw up a bit and then play the nice cards from my hand. Basically the Nexus and then the cast, which was a mistake. I forgot scarcity was up here. I paid 5 credits for a daily cast that should have cost 3. The reason I wanted to keep the strike in hand was because I didn't want it overwritten immediately with a second scarcity. You'll also notice how I tactically held my first scarcity, the one that has now been erased, until after my opponent scored the Nisei. I don't want them to clear my employee strike by scoring agendas. That's a waste of my own current. So, now that I've strike up, I can go for the strike DDM combo. I'm going to see 5 cards here. Celeb Gift, Maryland Campaign, No Point Trashing, Mirage, Hedge Fund, and DNA Tracker. Noting that if my opponent decides to shuffle their Maryland back into the deck, it will refresh R&D and I can go in again with a same old DDM. Now, I didn't see any agendas on R&D, which was kind of expected given that the hand was still badly flooded. Remember, from the opening Celeb Gift, there is still an Obo Carter and a Philotic unaccounted for. We are going to run HQ to find it. Let's see what my opponent reses here. They are on 14 credits, so I'm expecting a lot of things. Anything could happen here. Probably not a barrier, but it was a barrier. I wasn't expecting 2 Chiyashis, but instead it's another barrier. It's Kakugo. I'm not going to run through that. Normally I would. Well, but I can't because I don't have my breaker out. But more importantly, even if I did have the Sherman, I wanted to get a feedback filter on the table first. Kakugo can be really annoying with that net damage that's not preventable even if you use Security Nexus. So yeah, I could have triggered Nexus, but I wanted to keep the feedback filter in my hand. So this was why I did not go through with the HQ run, even though there was a good chance of me stealing one of those juicy agendas. Now, what happens? I'm gonna get more money. I now realize that it's very easy for me to win this game here. All I need to do is to maintain remote lock on my opponent's remote server. I know that the only thing they can threaten is Philotic. That's the only card I have to worry about. Everything else has to be pre-advanced, which gives me ample notification to run through that remote. So, I may look deceptively poor right now, but do remember, I actually gain a lot of money on the start of my turn. I burst from 5 to 13 credits at the start of my turn thanks to double daily casts and 4 drip econ cards going. My opponent is very quickly losing their scoring window, and this is the oppression that Sunny can place once you get set up. I'm basically more or less set up now. Only sentries can stop me, and even then it has to be a double sentry because I have Security Nexus. My opponent never advances something in the remote. That could be the Philotic. Do I go for it? I think I do. Do I drop the strike? My only strike remaining before I run it. Well, why not play Deuce's Wild? This way I can see what's on the remote. The inner ice is revealed to be a Mirage, and now I have to decide which server to run with the Deuce's Wild. I go for the remote, and I see a DNA tracker. Hedging that my opponent wouldn't put a killer sentry there, and even if they did, I would just use Security Nexus. I was right, of course. So I break the DNA tracker with Striker, and Nexus through the Chiashi. They have no point resing the Mirage, which was clearly going to be used as Ag Infusion fodder. Unfortunately, they couldn't because Strike was active. So they lost their only never advanceable agenda to me, and I now solidify my lead. 5 agenda points to 2. My opponent didn't even bother using the Nisei token, knowing that it wouldn't be of much use. Now my opponent instead advances a card in there. It could be bait, it could be an Obo Carter. I decided that it was not worth running it. Well, I could have, but after running Archives, I got hit by a Breach Dome, and that was nasty. The Breach Dome took 1 hit point off of me, meaning that it would be that much harder to contest the remote. I still could, but I wouldn't want to contest the remote if I can't get the agenda in there. So yeah, this is probably a really fishy mistake. I could have easily guaranteed myself the win there if I bothered to draw up and take some credits and run the remote. I'm not sure why I didn't. I really should have, because I would have just outright won the game. Instead, I went for R&D, clearing the Chrysium grid there so I could potentially threaten a DDM on R&D. But I didn't do that, and I just let the time pass. I was still debating on whether to run a remote, but in the end, I did not, giving my opponent a very rare opportunity to claw their way back through the game. But actually, I do know that they have a Nisei token. That was the big issue. I could afford to run once, not twice though. So I went for the DDM or R&D, and they played the odds. I see 5 cards, and none of them are agendas that I could... Oh, it's a future perfect. I bid a 0. And trying to siphon some money from my opponent, which they did pay. They paid 1 credit to prevent the future perfect from being stolen. Now I'm starting to panic here. I use my last click to run the remote, knowing that my opponent could easily stop me with a Nisei token. So my biggest problem earlier was that I couldn't run twice on the remote because I didn't have the money to get through Chiashi and DNA Tracker twice, not to mention whatever the outer ice is. Unfortunately for me, I'm not going to be able to get the agenda here as my opponent ends the run and scores the second Nisei. Nisei train is alive. This is a problem. Don't forget, strike is down as well. So this is going to be pretty tricky. We actually have a game on our hands. Even though it seems like I established an arm lock on my opponent, unfortunately, not being able to contest the remote twice is causing me problems. The Nisei Mark II, very powerful agenda there. And I still haven't got my strike up yet, although I don't really see the need for it at this point. Now, I'm going to click all my resources for money first before making a Jack Sinclair run on HQ. I know there is an Obo Carter live from my opponent and I want to get it. I know it's in the hand because it's not in the bin. So I'm going to pay the Sherman and prevent the damage. And I'm going to see 1 in 3 that Obo Carter that I know is there and possibly more. They think about it. They can end the run with Nisei Mark II. Will they? Let's see. Are they going to risk it? It's a 1 in 3 for them to outright lose the game. But they really need the Nisei token to end the game by scoring. They chose to use the Nisei token. I start my turn proper with 4 clicks. And I know that if I don't make enough successful or rather if I run HQ and miss the Obo Carter, I'm giving my opponent a very huge window to score the Obo Carter themselves, because the remote's much more heavily defended than HQ. So I told myself I could not run HQ again. I just couldn't, because it costs 5 credits, 3 to mitigate the Kakugo net damage and 2 to break the Kakugo proper. Stupid Sherman. So yeah, instead I decided to build up my board state, expose the outer ice on the remote, which turned out to be Excalibur, and then ran through HQ as a form of click compressing, and then prevented the net damage here, which probably was a mistake. I wanted to prevent the net damage there, even though it cost me half my money. I went down to 6 to 3 credits because of that, but I did that because I wanted to keep the same old thing in my hand. If the net damage sniped the same old thing, I would be in a lot of trouble, because obviously employee strike is down. Don't forget that. My opponent still has a very, very threatening win con in the remote, inner ice being Miraju. If I can remove the Egg Infusion Boop threat, it'll be a lot easier to contest the remote when I do need to get in there. Now, I was actually feeling okay about my position so far because I knew my opponent could not score the Obo Carter next turn. They only had 4 credits, so they couldn't install double advance and then score it the turn after. So I knew I was good for at least 1 more turn. I barely needed as many extra turns as I could accrue because of all my drip economy. Right now I have 5 drip econ per turn. That's a free HQ run every turn. That's huge. So considering my opponent decided the best course of action was to money up, which they did, and I responded with a mirror move. I moneyed up as well, clicking for 4 credits, and then my opponent dropped the bomb on me. It is time. Install double advance. We both know what that is, and we both know it's the game winning agenda for the both of us. I start my turn with my extra click, Jack Sinclair, to run. Obviously, I need to use this on a single ice server, and R&D makes the most sense. I had been counting the deep data mining cards, and this was the turn where the future perfect, remember the side game we played earlier, is on the top of the deck. We sigh. I'm gonna bid 0 again, thinking they would switch to 0. But no, they stay on 1, which means it is go time for Ryu, not just for me, but for you at home as well. Put on your thinking caps, or for you millennials, put on your thinking emojis, because it's time, once again, to figure out what's my line of play. What should I do to maximize the chances of me winning this game, assuming that each Psy run on R&D is a 1 in 3 chance for me to win. Most of the necessary info should be on the graphic on the screen as you see now. If there's any extra info you need, feel free to rewind the video. Otherwise, pause it right now and figure out What's the best line of play? Perhaps leave it in the comment section as well. We'll get to the answer shortly. Now, given that HQ and archives are probably empty, and that the remote is basically impenetrable with Excalibur forcing a Nexus Trace and the innermost Miraju forcing a redirection, R&D makes the most sense. There is a known agenda on top of it, and there is no defense whatsoever. Aside from the unres DNA tracker that the Corp can't even afford to res. It's the perfect server to run, and very obvious indeed. So here's a graphic of the possible things you can do on R&D. Now, first you could play same old strike and get 2 R&D runs after that. This is a very lousy solution because you're better off just sucking up the Ag Infusion boop. That only eats up 1 of your clicks, whereas same old strike eats up 2 of your clicks for no benefit whatsoever. So that leaves us with 2 options left. Either running R&Ds non-stop or taking 2 clicks to play DDM. Now, what surprised me very much after crunching the numbers is that the chance of winning for both cases ends up being very, very close. A margin of less than 1 percentage point. The DDM, while giving you 1 less possible run on R&D, actually allows you to see 4 more cards, 4 fresh cards, and of the 21 cards remaining in R&D, 2 of them are agendas, the last remaining Nisei Mark II and the last remaining Obo Carter, both of which are stealable. So the chances of stealing that after crunching numbers ends up at 35.2%, which barely edges out the 33.3% that you get from a future perfect side game. So it actually turns out that the DDM plus 2 R&D runs is actually the better solution. Now then, some of you might ask, if the Corp is smart, wouldn't they use the Ag Infusion boop on the DDM run? And my response is that that would actually be really stupid because they give up their trump card in the Ag Infusion boop and expose their remote, so you can just run through the remote and steal the Obo Carter that is in there for the win. That wouldn't be a wise choice if the Corp goes for that. So yep, there's your solution. Or you could take the more obvious solution like I did here, play same old thing on Employee Strike and then run straight through the remote. Turns out you don't need to worry about the innermost Miraju when Ag Infusion's ability is blank, and thus you don't need to worry about the outermost Excalibur when you can simply let the subroutine fire. Yeah, well, that explains why Employee Strike is on the restricted list. It's that good. But that being said, that's not the MVP. I think the MVP of this game, hands down, has to go to Celebrity GIF, because that one card single-handedly gave me the information I needed to win this game. When my opponent showed me half their agendas in their deck, in their hand, wow, that made it a lot easier for me to make my in-game decisions. Of course, that also has its roots traced back to the mining accidents. When the walls started caving in, they just didn't stop, and my opponent lost 10 whole credits to that. Otherwise, they would not have to reveal that they were agenda flooded. They could choose not to play the Celebrity GIF and be a bit poorer instead. So, all those interplays between the Corp and runner cards coming to play this game, and that's what makes the gameplay so interesting. Beyond just talking about how our individual decks were built, the interplay during the game was really beautiful to watch, and one reason why I really enjoyed this game. Not to mention that the rest of the hidden information I needed came from another crucial part of my deck, Deuce's Wild. Now, when you see Deuce's Wild in other decks such as Comet Smoke, which I introduced some time back, these decks tend to be pretty poor because they rely mostly on these events for economy, so Deuce's Wild will usually be on the build script mode most of the time. In actual fact, the gain 3 credits option on Deuce's Wild is actually one of the weakest. The only reason you use it is because there are not that many better economy cards in the game. Otherwise, the last option, the Expose and Make a Run, is arguably the best option on Deuce's Wild and a huge reason to play it. That option gave me a lot of knowledge this game, and as you all know, knowledge is power. I was able to hold off the Shrike install. As you notice, I ended the game without having to install the Shrike because I knew that there were no threatening sentries, or rather, there were no sentries on the remote to begin with. Hence, I didn't need the sentry breaker. And I also knew the threats I was up against, so I knew that my opponent had no way of stopping me threw the Excalibur into DNA Tracker, into Chiashi, into Mirage Run. And that was how I was able to pull out the victory. So again, did you find the winning line of play in the employee strike on that final turn? Congratulations if you did, but no worries if you didn't. Just share what you thought on that last turn regardless in the comment section, and I'm sure everyone can benefit from your insight as well. As always, in the meantime, thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye.